Topping today's news, Prime Minister Davis to host the President of Botswana, another man on bail for murder, the victim of a Sunday afternoon homicide, 5 people surviving a harrowing airplane crash on Abaco, and the tourism minister excited about the downtown revitalization. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Jcn Saunders. This is your Jcn Evening News. It is a pleasure to have you join us. Prime Minister Philip Davis announced the Bahamas will host President of the Republic of Botswana, Dr. Mangosuthu Masisi, and his delegation in what will be an official state visit from the 12th to the 15th of September to underline the expanding of diplomatic ties between the Bahamas and African nations as the country attempts to reposition itself on the global stage. In a press release from the Office of the Prime Minister, it is revealed that both countries see the opportunities for cooperation in a number of sectors and industries, which include tourism, the environment, education, agriculture, health, and financial services, as President Masisi will be accompanied by his cabinet ministers whose portfolio cover those respective ministries. Prime Minister Davis says this visit provides an opportunity, unparalleled opportunity, to deepen the relationship and explore areas for mutual benefit and growth. Official talks between Prime Minister Davis and President Masisi, they're set to begin on Wednesday, September 13th, while meetings between counterpart ministries will be conducted with a view of signing a memorandum of understanding on political and technical cooperation. Then on Friday, both leaders will depart for the Group of 77 States Summit of Science, Technology, and Innovation that will take place in Cuba. A man on bail for murder, shot and killed by his partner in crime. This latest incident taking place on Sunday afternoon shortly after 3 p.m. in the area of Lemon Street, just off Graham Drive in Yellow Elder No. 1. While details remain sketchy, Police Press Liaison Officer Chief Superintendent Christine Skippings with some brief facts.
Sometime around 3:15 p.m., police were notified of a shooting on Lightburn Street, just off Graham Drive. Information received is that 2 masked males, both of whom were clad in dark clothing and gloves, were observed running west along Lightburn Street when one of the men produced a firearm and fired gunshots. It is believed that during the exchange of gunshots, the deceased was shot by his accomplice, who fled the area running west along Lightburn Street. Police recovered from the scene a magazine for a high-powered weapon. The deceased is known to police. He's presently on bail for murder.
According to Chief Superintendent Skippings, the victim was in his mid-20s. Police are still trying to piece together what transpired and what led to the man's death. Police are appealing to anyone in the area that may have any information. You can reach out to the nearest police station or call the Criminal Investigations Department. Now, with this being yet another incident where a man on bail being shot and killed, officer in charge of the Grove Police Station, Chief Superintendent Craswell Hanna, shared some insight on how the police intend to deal with people on bail going forward.
Persons who have been released on bail, more in particular those who are released on bail for serious offenses, murder, armed robbery, attempted murder. These are the persons we're having challenges with, either becoming murder victims or being charged with a murder. So for law enforcement, as you know, we don't control who goes on bail. So the question becomes, what can we as law enforcement do to address that trend? And what we've been doing is, when someone is released on bail, they have bail requirements. Some of them have curfews, some of them assign into a particular police station at a certain time. And if they do not, there are consequences. So one of the strategies we're using, not only in the Grove division, but all the other divisions, is we are paying closer attention to those persons who are supposed to be signing in. And where there are breaches, we are rearresting them and taking them before the court with a view to have their bail revoked.
That was officer in charge of the Grove Police Station, Chief Superintendent Cresswell Hanna. The Aircraft Accident Investigation Authority is currently investigating a plane crash that took place on Abaco on Sunday evening. According to reports, after 4 p.m., the investigation authority was notified of an occurrence that took place involving a Piper PA-32 with a United States registration that crashed after takeoff from the Leonard Thompson International Airport in Marsh Harbor, Abaco. It is believed the airplane, owned by Inter-Island Charters, suffered engine failure. There has been no reported injuries to the 5 people on board that flight. Investigations are ongoing. With the controversial former Minister of Immigration and Labor, Keith Bell, being moved to oversee the Ministry of Housing and Urban Renewal, it is being reported that senior immigration officers have also been removed from their post and made to retire. Leader of the official opposition, Michael Pintard, calls this latest move by the government victimizing. He is also critical of the Davis administration for placing a greater value on loyalty to the Progressive Liberal Party brand of politics over good governance.
The Prime Minister admitted he was aware of the concerns by senior immigration officers on how sensitive immigration matters were being handled by the minister or those that the minister sought to empower. The troubling areas included the granting of citizenship, permanent residencies, issuing of work permits, and the enforcement of immigration laws. The continuous breach of protocols and laws by the Davis administration in the area of immigration has caused Bahamian citizens, residents, and international observers to wonder to what extent these decisions are being made to gain political advantage or personal benefit.
Mr. Pintard came to the defense of the senior immigration officers who communicated their grievances with the permanent secretary, alleging that Minister Bell had consistently interfered with their work. Reportedly, Director of Immigration Keturah Ferguson was placed on leave and then retired, while Deputy Director Dwight Benaby has been offered a package for early retirement. Emails between Mrs. Ferguson and the permanent secretary concerning immigration staff issues with the former Minister of Immigration were obtained by the official opposition, and the contents of those letters revealed during a press conference.
Now, given the widespread outrage, you would think that this administration would tread carefully in how they deal with whistleblowers or public servants simply carrying out their duties. These senior public servants acted on their conscience, dutifully making us aware of Minister Bell's pattern of interference as he bullied veteran public servants who offered seasoned guidance. Instead, the Davis-led administration was more concerned about how the revelations found themselves in the public domain, rather than address the revelations of bad behavior. Some public servants were placed on administrative leave, and others were threatened to be transferred or fired.
Mr. Pintard goes on to condemn the government for the removal of the immigration officials, stating that the move reeks of corruption and stinks of arrogance.
These are not the actions of a government committed to accountability and transparency. These are not the actions of an administration that supports the whistleblowing provision already embedded in the Freedom of Information Act. They are not the actions of a government committed to freedom of information or an ombudsman bill. They are not the actions of a government that respects the authority of the Public Accounts Committee. The Prime Minister promised the Bahamian people a different brand of politics and governance. He promised to govern for all Bahamians and in the best interests of all Bahamians. He has failed miserably in doing so.
Mr. Pintard said, despite Minister Bell's egregious acts, law-abiding Bahamians and public servants will ultimately be the ones who suffer. The government is set to bring in a new bill to Parliament to make it easier for visitors and Bahamians to legitimately enter the Bahamas. Minister of Tourism, Investments and Aviation, Deputy Prime Minister Chester Cooper, making this announcement as well as other initiatives on the Family Islands.
With an electronic immigration declaration form, we expect an act of Parliament early in the new session to allow this. We also plan to start business incubation centers through the Tourism Development Corporation in Nassau, Grand Bahama, and Exuma. We have already received funding from the Saudi Fund for Development for this purpose, and we anticipate moving ahead with incubation centers in more of our island destinations in the future. We plan to use the Tourism Development Fund levy to improve our product and to fund massive investments in Bahamian empowerment via entrepreneurship through the Tourism Development Corporation. I also foreshadowed before that we will be launching some significant programs for the empowerment of women entrepreneurs in particular.
Continuing on the topic of tourism development, DPM Cooper also mentions another bill coming to Parliament for the continued downtown revitalization.
In terms of downtown, we are going to bring a bill to Parliament for the Downtown Management Authority once Parliament reopens. So far, we've demolished more than 6 buildings, and meantime, we're working along with AMMC to ensure that we keep the natural charm of the historical buildings downtown. We're working along with entrepreneurs to get involved because we want more activities downtown. We have an overall plan for downtown, especially for east of East Street, and we anticipate some significant new developments in this area to be announced shortly, including a food market that will also cater to the creative community, as well as other significant initiatives working along with our partners in the creative arts community.
Junkanoo Beach rejuvenation and revitalization is also in the works.
You may already know that this is the busiest beach in the country and sometimes attract up to 10,000 visitors per day. We've started some preliminary works in terms of ensuring that the drainage systems downtown are clear to help with the flooding, and we're reviewing the entire infrastructure there to see how we can permanently resolve the issues, working along with our partners from the Ministry of Works and the Water and Sewage Corporation. We've also divided Bay Street into several zones, and our team in the revitalization unit, led by Senator the Honorable Randy Roll, is already meeting with all of the stakeholders in the different zones to get their feedback on how we can help to continue to advance downtown.
Minister Cooper says because of the many years of decay, downtown is a very big job. Therefore, medium and long-term plans must be in place. And finally, in this segment, the Utilities, Regulations and Competition Authority, ERCA, is investigating the outages of electronic communication services, particularly in the Family Islands, having already been in contact with the Bahamas Telecommunications Corporation's executive team discussing the most recent outages and BTC's plans to mitigate and address the issues. According to a press release from ERCA on Sunday, during the month of August alone, there were significant outages on Andros, the Berry Islands, Exuma, Inagua, Mayaguana, and Ragged Island, though since then services have been restored. BTC's CEO Samir Bhatti recognized the complaints on the Family Islands and released a statement last week apologizing and explaining that the connectivity issues were related to power outages by BPL. He said they are in communication with Bahamas Power and Light in an effort to address the issues. Now, according to ERCA, BTC has assured them that the reported outages have been addressed and appropriate measures have been taken to avoid such issues in the future. We'll take a break here. We'll be right back after these commercials.